What's up, everybody? What a pleasure to be with you guys this Tuesday, today, so that we can do some really cool things. I'm super excited you're all on. Saw some of you guys watching out from Riverside represent. LA representing, and of course from around the world. Thank you all for joining us. Just wanted to give you guys a heads up. Next week, We're going to be hanging out with this young cat. His name is Marcus Cole. He's a musician, he's an artist, he's an actor, and he's just a really cool cat to hang out with. So we're going to talk to him about his journey in the music world. He's been playing the drums since he was like 3 or 4. He's one of those musicians that were just, brilliant. He's going to talk about his faith journey as well, and how he's wanted to live his life most honoring God in all that he does. So that's next week. But this week, today, we're going to be hanging out with a bunch of Polynesians, man. Nothing gets really good unless you have a bunch of Polynesians hanging out with you. So I hope you're ready to hang with us, laugh, chill, and have a good time as we talk about life, justice, and community here on Tuesday Tea Time. Catch up with us. Oh, I got booted. Or did I? I didn't get booted. I'm still here, people. You with me? Am I still here? I'm still here. You with me? Marina in the house? Marina, California. All right. We're going to... Hello, everybody.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
Just as we're getting started here, I want you guys to know that my wife said to me last week, she's like, you've been doing this long enough. You shouldn't have any problems anymore. What's wrong with you? So welcome on, everyone. If you are just joining us, we are here with this ragtag group of amazing leaders from around our community. I want them to introduce themselves. So just as we get started here, hey, why don't we start to my left? Introduce yourself, young lady. Tell us who you are, what you're doing currently in your community, and what your profession is.
Hi, everyone. I'm Toakase. People call me Kase Vunileva. And currently, I am working at Loma Linda Academy as a principal of the junior high. And blessed to be part of that leadership team and serving the Loma Linda community. Also, I am a Tongan who supports the ministry of the Tongan community across the nation, actually, and excited to be part of that. I've been doing that for a really long time and excited to be joining that community again. It's been a while since I've been in Cali and lived here. So here we are back in Cali, Southern California. Looking forward to ministering alongside my brothers that are here, as well as the of young people who are looking to serve God in a different way and joining them in their journey. So excited to be here, Pastor Iki. Thank you.
Yeah. Guys, welcome back to the SoCal land, sister. Is Loma Linda ready for a Tongan to lead them?
Come on.
Is this thing?
Oh, of course. Absolutely. It's about time.
Woo, let's go.
Long overdue.
Let's go. All right. Just beneath.
So here we go.
Just beneath me, Orlando, please introduce yourself.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thanks, Icky, for this opportunity. My name is Orlando. Currently living in Toronto, Canada, but I was born all the way in New Zealand. So New Zealand's home. My parents are both from Tongan and Samoan ancestry. And so we kind of grew up, going between both cultures. Before heading out to Andrews, met my wife now. And then the time that I was growing up, but right now, pastoring for the last 15 years, serving now in the conference as men, singles, and family ministries director, co-director with my wife, who is also a pastor, Liz, and both of us oversee these ministries. And we have three boys. Island boys, bones are just thick, and all of that sort of stuff. And 13, 12, and 7. Love them to bits. So glad to be here. Thank you.
Yo, welcome on, man. You've got to have a bit of an internal battle going on in you, right? Half Tongan, half Samoan, lived in New Zealand, married to Canada. You're like
Filipino. She's actually Filipino.
Is she?
Yeah.
You're like the living color of Benetton, man. Oh, that's fresh, man. That's fresh. By the way, my wife is Filipino from Canada as well. Is it Vancouver or Toronto side?
Toronto side.
Oh,
Toronto.
Okay, yeah. Mine's from the West Coast.
All right.
Yeah,
all right.
Gang battles, man. Gang battles. Next to you is a very familiar face around these parts in our local area, Meshach Soli. Meshach, can you introduce yourself?
Hey, yeah, man. Blessed to be here. Thank you for the invite, Iki. Currently pastoring in San Diego at the South Bay SDA Church. Been here for about 2 years, but been involved in a lot of the Samoan work that is taking place here in Southeastern California Conference. I actually started my first couple years of ministry being the youth and young adult minister for the four churches. If you were to add Excel Church to that, it's a more of a diverse Polynesian community. You know, it was focused around a lot of Polys that married outside of the culture and was trying to find a space that was somewhere in the middle. And so I did that for about 3 to 4 years. I followed Pastor Paul Shope, who planted that church there, and then asked me to lead that afterwards. Then after graduation, ended up at a church in Beaumont for about 3 to 4 years.
Beaumont.
And yeah, Beaumont in the house.
Yeah,
man.
baby.
And then God took me out of the wilderness of all that hot and tumbleweed and dust and brown to sunny San Diego, man, where it's like if you were to go to Hawaii, San Diego was probably the one like right below it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm blessed to be married to my high school sweetheart, Linda. She's a respiratory therapist out here at Kaiser.
All right.
And we are the proud parents of 5 strapping lads. So 5 boys here as well. And so our house is pretty much testosterone driven. But just blessed to be a part of this conversation. So thanks for the invite.
Hey, man. Orlando, you got to catch up, man. You're too behind Meshach.
I'm like Meshach, man. I'm done. Like, 3
Wrapped it up, huh?
It's over.
Packed it up, man. We'll give that title to Meshach Soli. So we'll just
Meshach Soli is the winner. You know what, Gase, I didn't get to ask you. So could you put how many kids do you have?
I have 2.
Okay.
Married to Pastor Paul.
All right. That's my guy.
Vunileva. So yes, I have a 11-year-old who is 5'8".
Ooh. So technically he counts for 2 then, really.
Yes, he does.
All right.
He'll be taller than me. I think.
Oh, snap. All right, and finally,
it's safe to say that everybody's budget goes more towards food than anything else.
Yeah. Preach, man. Preach.
Seriously.
Ooh, mercy.
Especially during COVID, man. It's like homeschooling and everything. I was like constantly heading to the cupboard. I'm like, what's going on, guys?
All right, and our last character on here. Now, this guy here. Let me just say this. This guy had the nerve to be the very last to come on, right, people? He came on like 5 minutes before he got started. Then he gave me his handle and his account. If you haven't been on his Instagram, if you haven't been following, his handle's like 5,000 characters long.
It is.
Meshach, tell us, man. Fill us in, bro. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, fam? This is I'm Meshach Mauia. I am pastoring out here in South Central Conference. I'm currently pastoring in Soso in Laurel, Mississippi. Probably often hear that with Pastor Bird's testimony. In the wilderness experience, his first call was here in this district. So giant field, shoes to follow, definitely. But I'm married to the former Meshach Soli. It is actually Meshach's baby sister.
All right.
And so in our family, I am Sako. So today, you can call me by Sako. Anytime we're together, I'll leave the OG. He can have the name. And
Did you say that because he's got gray in his beard?
No, listen. My brother, I love him dearly. He knows it. In our families, we don't have in-laws, so we don't use that title anywhere when we're introducing each other. So everyone's always confused. Wait. There's 2 Meshachs in your family? I said, yeah. So it's always a good game to play, especially when you're around people who are not of Pacific Island descent.
Right.
They just kind of look at you like really, really weird. And we love to play that game, man. So I'm Sako for today, man. But I'm married to Meshach. I have 3 wonderful kids. Again, my 10-year-old is just like Pastor Ka says. He's 10, 5'8". He is growing. He's going to be taller, but one thing I always remind him as Pacific Islanders, our dads are, even if they're short, they always warn us our hands still work, and that's the message I've been telling him as he's been growing up, so he knows. Even after he surpasses me, man, these hands.
That's right.
They're going to hug him. They're going to hug him. So, we are privileged. We're privileged. And then, I have a 10-year-old. I have a princess who is 7, Jamie Lynn. And then I have a 6-month-old, and that is, God has a sense of humor. I'm gonna just leave it at that,
Yeah.
man. From 7 years to 6 months old, we thought we were done, but we're done for reals now. The Lord said no, and we tired and all that stuff. So we are privileged to be on this platform, just to be with you all, just to discuss such an important topic today.
Man, hey, listen, we really appreciate you joining us, bro. And look, you can't tell God when he's done, man. I mean, remember Sarah tried that. Sarah and Abraham, they tried that, man. So don't test the Lord. He didn't play around. I do want to point out, guys, that when Meshach came on, Soli, when you were introducing, we had some comments that said, hey, we love Meshach. By the way, there's 4 or 5 other people on this too. So if you want to love us, we accept love. We're all leaders too, you know. We're all here, man. Get some love around here. Mercy. Thanks, Sako. Thanks for introducing yourself, and welcome on, everybody. It really is a great pleasure to sit with you all. I've really enjoyed all the work that you've done over the years. I have been following most of you and watching you do some great things. So it's a great pleasure to have you on. Let's start here. So we're on Tuesday Tea Time. Tell me, what are you drinking today? Let's start with Sako. Sako, since you finished this off, why don't you jump in here?
Sure. So I'm here in the South. I'm in Mississippi, and so in true fashion, I have a mason jar, of sweet tea. Now, you know how it's good sweet tea is when all you can taste is sugar, and this is nothing but sugar.
And people wonder why Polynesians have diabetes.
Hey man, listen.
Man, we can't.
I made an exception just for Icky today.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Tell me what you drinking, bro. Meshach, what are you drinking?
Oh, so I just got back from Jamba Juice, and so in this cup here, I poured my Orange Dream Machine up in here.
Oh,
so
yes.
Yeah,
That's what's up.
Oh, that's good stuff, man. Lando, you drinking anything?
Yeah, man. The kids ate all the food, so we're here right here with water, man. Just checking down water.
Just tap water, huh?
Just water. Yeah, man. Yeah. Keeping it real. Stay hydrated.
Kase, how about you?
I'm going to balance out the sugar with some water with Orlando.
All right.
Come on, there you go.
That's all right.
Water
Today.
I'm drinking top secret black oil in there. I don't want to seem like to be the unrighteous one, so let's just not say what I'm drinking here today.
I had some earlier.
All right. Hey, let's start here, everybody. I'm just going to ask for a show of hands. So, show of hands, how many of you were American born? If you were born in America, just raise your hand. 2. Okay, good. Show of hands, how many of you professionally work in your cultural setting? So, directly with Samoans or with Tongans? Anyone here? Okay. How many of you are Samoan? Any Samoans? Okay. Tongans, raise your hands. That's why I put us on top, Kasi. You see? No, just like, and we got the half breed underneath me. If you're a Gen Xer, raise your hand. If you're Generation X, okay. If you're millennial, is any one of us a millennial? Okay. Oh, we got a baby with us. Very good. Okay. Good.
How cute.
That's so cute. Oh, Sako. Okay. Anyone working outside of the United States right now? United States. There was mention of one, right? Orlando. Good. And then. So this kind of gives everybody an idea of where we're coming from and what sense of diversity you're going to get from our conversation today. Most of us have been code switching all of our lives. For those of you who are not Tongan or Samoan or from outside or outside of the main strong dominant race here, code switching means being able to speak a different kind of way to different people because that's how they understand it. So most of us have been code switching all of our lives. we've got a little bit of ghetto blood in us. That's just the way we roll. But we know how to speak when we're around our certain people. We speak a certain way, right? When we're around our black friends, we tend to use our ghetto more freely. When we're around our white friends, we speak a little bit more proper English. When we're in the pulpit, we bring fire and eloquence. And then when you're at home, you're a little bit of half and half. So I want to talk about that a little bit. How do you stay connected to who you really are, having to code switch so often? I want to ask Soli. Soli, can you answer that for us? How do you do it, man?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because even growing up, that's one of the things that I struggled with. Not only, at home, you're expected to live by the cultural norms of a Samoan kid growing up. But then when you're at school, they're telling you, well, you need to act more American and do the things that they do. And then to top that off, Friday to like Sunday, we're at a Samoan church where all they do is speak Samoan, no English. And then I come back home. And so I struggled a lot with that, with coding at a young age. But what I discovered was, with this identity crisis is, am I supposed to be American? Am I supposed to be Samoan? And I think it wasn't until later in my life, man, that I just came to terms like it was okay to be both. I came to realize that I'm just a hybrid of a few things. So more currently, the way that I deal with it is just, it's just like what you said. There's certain spaces where I know that communication is very important. And so just the way that I carry myself around different people is based on just trying to be able to switch up and speak their language. I don't think it has anything to do with who I am as far as I think where I'm at now, I'm more comfortable with being both or being a multitude of others because, when we came in, they kind of labeled it like the first generation. And then they gave us the, it wasn't even the second generation. We were 1.5. we didn't even get a number. It was like, you're just 1.5. Right? And so I was okay with that. And I realized that because I was a 1.5, my kids had a better transition to becoming the 2, right? And being able to share with them different ways on how to navigate culturally and just switching up as far as it comes to communicating with a variety of different people.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if any of you all had to deal with this, but like my parents always used the other culture to talk down another culture. Like if they see something they didn't like with the Americans, you see, that's why we're Tongan. We're Tongans. We don't do that. We don't wear that to the beach because we're Tongans. We respect our peoples. But then as soon as they see something they don't like, you see, that's why we American now. That's why we in America. You're like, what do you want me to be? I can't figure this out. Maybe that was something you had to struggle with. Kase, how did you find it hard to fully grasp your identity through all of this as you're growing up and trying to figure out, are you American, are you Tongan? What was your experience with that?
I think my parents moved us out I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah, which interesting fact is 1 out of 4 Tongans in Salt Lake City, Utah in the world.
Wow.
And so my mom thought, I'm going to move them away from where all the Tongans live. She moved us away in Utah. And then she sent us to the Adventist school, right? So I actually did not interact with Tongans outside of my family. But my parents were super strict Tongans too. So I think my collision, I think, with that identity crisis happened when I went away to boarding school. Right. And it really came when I was dealing with my faith, because the God that my parents portrayed and what I lived in the church that I grew up in was not the God that I was seeing and experiencing for myself at a boarding school.
Right.
And if I choose this way, I'm going against my parents and my faith and my culture. And then when I decided to follow God fully and seek a pastoral degree and go to seminary, the worlds collided because my family and my culture, they were not for it, right? So every Tongan I knew was like, are you going against God? And I said, well, you taught me to follow God, right? And so the cultural piece still is loud and strong. But I finally had to come to terms with, who am I going to listen to? Who am I going to be about? Who's going to be at the forefront of what I'm seeking? And even if that meant going against my culture, which I love dearly, it meant I was going to seek after him. And so growing up, it's that interdependence, independent, Am I for my family, or am I going to be by myself as an American? And the school teaches you to be independent.
Yeah.
You can do it on your own for yourself, and you come home and they're like, it's not for yourself. I don't know if you had aunts and uncles who were like pulling up your report card to go show to their work people. Like, like, okay, that's weird, right? That's weird that you would do that. But they're so proud because they're Tongan and they want to show off. And for them, it's what you do good is for all of us.
Right.
When you're bad, it's against all of us. But when you do good things, it's for all of us. And that's who you are in the Polynesian community. You represent your family no matter what you do, how you do it, and where you go. So it's been a constant struggle. One day, one of us should write a book about that.
Ooh, so true, so true. Did anybody else go to boarding school? Did you? I actually went to boarding school. Anybody else? Okay. So interestingly enough, Katz, as you were saying that, I remember a few things like, so we grew up and being Tongan, the Sabbath, man. You cooked Friday at noon, and you ate that mess cold all Sabbath long, and you stayed at church, and you waited till the sun goes down before you eat again something warm. And it was probably my sophomore or my junior year was the first time I ever ate out on the Sabbath. Let me tell you, this old white couple who were considered the most righteous on our campus invited me to go with them to eat lunch after church one day. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, yeah, we're going to go to your house. We're going to eat the cold food and da-da. And they took me out of the campus and took me to a restaurant. Yo, you guys, you don't understand. Like, I thought the Lord was going to kill all of us right there, man. I thought it was over. I was like, dude, this is we're done. The Lord is coming and we're all dead. And what a shocking experience to be able to experience something that's so contrast to, what you've grown up to be part of your faith. It was a breaking point for me. It was something else. Does anyone else have an experience like that where your faith, your cultural faith, kind of ran into a different perspective as you were growing up? Maybe Sako, do you have something that you've experienced?
Man, I just think probably in high school, where our cultural norms, as Pacific Islanders, we're very conservative in our theology and our practices.
Yeah.
To where when you kind of are trying to find yourself, especially in a high school setting, you like for me, I always hid that I was Adventist, but people already knew that I was some kind of church because on Friday nights when parties would come, the Western world, this is parties. We do it on Friday nights. We go to football games. We play football, all of these other things. And I'm missing an action. And then come Monday, I'm trying to be the baddest cat on campus.
Right.
It just collided, so the two identities working against each other, not only as Adventists, but also as Pacific Islanders, Samoan household. And then on top of that, man, I always hid, like I was vegetarian for the first 20 years of my life. And then I went to Australia and I never looked back, man. And
that kangaroo meat, man, you had to have it.
It was a great one. So it was as far as identity and the cultures clashing, not only in our religious backgrounds, but also our cultural heritage. It's always a struggle within individuals. And I'm sure those who are watching can testify to it. You're trying to find a place in the Western world while being raised in a cultural norm of our Tongan families, our Samoan families. And so, for me growing up, and then on top of that, I'm a pastor's kid. And so that's like five different things on top of trying to meet a standard of culture and church and all of these things. And it led me astray. That's just part of
it. That's what makes the gospel so amazing, right?
Yeah.
That's what makes the gospel so powerful. So Orlando, I want to ask you what the impetus for the PI for Justice. For those of you watching along, there's a hashtag right underneath me, hashtag PI for Justice. And that's kind of the movement. And I'm really thankful for so many in our Polynesian faith and community who are leaders who are actually just engaging in this dialogue that they're having. We're not a monolithic group of people. We've got different beliefs, different ideas. We're all across the spectrum, but we've taken the opportunity to engage in a way that's really like respectful respectful, and like we're saying, hey, you know what, we want to be supportive and do this. And I want to blame you, Orlando, for being the brainchild and pushing this forward. That God spoke to you.
It's all your fault.
Yeah, it's all your fault, man. So, but before you answer that question about like what was the impetus, like what got it churning, I want to ask you: have you ever experienced being profiled or discriminated? Have you ever had an experience like that you can share? And if anyone else does too, please feel free to share that. But I wanted to direct that to Orlando. Lando?
Sure. So, I mean, growing up, just like was mentioned, part of half of my family was Tongan, the other family was Samoan. So from a very young age, I kind of knew that, hey, you're not fully Samoan nor fully Tongan. And so even from that, we kind of had to have it hybrid. You know how it is when those jokes come out, you're at your Samoan family, jokes towards the Tongans and Tongans towards the Samoan. So at a very young age, I was like, I had to navigate all of this. And, I kind of adapted when I was with one culture. I learned the customs, and I didn't really get into the language, but, you just knew how to act,
Right.
And so growing up and going to school, for some reason, our parents had taken us to another suburb for school. So we were outside of our district. So within our district or within our neighborhood, Samoans, Tongans, all Pacific Islanders. But then we would get on, the train or a subway, and we would travel like 30 minutes outside and go to a school where it was 95% white. And so we were the only black kids that were there. And so again, it was just that whole navigating of, being in the majority where a lot of them were white. We were the only Pacific Islanders that were there. And through that experience, man, it was some of the things that were said, coconut, and, go back to your island, just kind of small things like that, just kind of builds upon you. And so from a very young age, navigating culture and then kind of going through that in high school, kind of set me up to.
Lando, if you're listening, I think we lost your feed. your headpiece.
To people. And I think that's kind of where PI for Justice kind of came in. Everyone was facing the injustices on their own, and their voices were loud in the Pacific Island community. But for me, kind of in a place like Canada and, the US before that, I was listening and learning about the histories of the Black community, the stories. And then, as I was learning, I started to think, how does this even pan out, when you put it up against the Polynesian community or the Pacific community? And it was only through that I was able to piece everything together with colonialism. And that just kind of fueled me even more. So, when it came down to Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and George Floyd, all these things were happening in front of us. It was COVID. We were all watching it. Again, for all the leaders that are even on this platform, everyone was doing something individually. So my thought was, what would our voice look like collectively if we came together? Because we're all saying the same thing, but we're saying it in different places. What would it look like for our Pacific Island community to kind of hear that from their leaders and the push for justice, and to be able to fight the injustices, that not only the Black community see, but what does that look like even us as people of color, and what we face as well. So it was from that it was the inception. I called up a lot of different people, invited them to a meeting, and it was a simple question. For all of us that were on there, how are you feeling? How are you processing this as you're watching all of this injustice that is happening? And so one by one, everyone started talking. And from there, it was like, well, what are we going to do about it?
Wow.
And then as we came together, we started to kind of see where we needed to go, what we needed to do. We started listening to the Black community as well, and making sure that our biases and our prejudices weren't painting, the justice that we wanted for them. And so, yeah, that was the beginning of where we are today.
Yeah, I want to just kind of go back to a reference you made earlier so that those watching along who may not really get the context. So in Australia, they considered you black if you were a South Pacific Islander. So, they'd call you black. We were black people in the South Pacific Islands. So when you hear that term is not, when you think about American, you think about black as African Americans, but in the South Pacific Rim, being black, like in Australia, New Zealand, meant being an
Well,
islander.
basically, black meant non-white.
Non-white, yes.
So if whatever color you fell under there, you were just not white. So.
Very good. So how do we begin to deal with this issue of justice, Orlando? And then if anybody else feels like leaning in as well, feel free to. But we have such a span of thoughts and feelings on how to respond to this. How were you able to melt that down and say, look, we want to stand for justice and for people to come around that?
Sure. So I'll start it off. We started to ask ourselves, well, what does the heart of God look like in this whole thing? What does justice look like? And so for us and all of us that were there, we're all clergy. As we came together and started talking about these issues, the question for us is, what does the Bible say? And from there, we were able to look at, okay, so, these then form our core values, as a group. And just to go through them very quickly, it is love, courage, justice, compassion, and moral obligation. So these are the things that each person started saying over and over, and which formulate kind of where, our group is. So yeah, that's kind of where that is.
Very good. Very good. Kasi, share with us.
When Orlando sent the message out for us to join, just to have the conversation, I was having my own conversation, right? Because the reality of this work is this: when we take a step out of our comfort zone to stand up for what's right, there are people who will leave because you've decided to take the step. When I look at that from a professional lens, I was thinking, if I step forward and do this, what does that mean? What does that look like professionally, right? And the reality is this: when we look at Micah 6:8, and God asks, when we ask the question, what does God require of me? But to act justly and to love mercifully and to walk humbly with Him. I knew that I had to do something. I couldn't just sit with my opinions, what I believed was true and right, and not act on them. That's not fair. And also, the second thing is, if God has given me this platform, why would I not use it to push what God has in store for His people? And I think to any Polynesian out there, to any person who's listening, Black, white, Asian, American, Indian, whatever you are, be proud of who you are. And then use the platform that God has given you to make sure that the world understands that injustice anywhere, like Martin Luther says,
It's justice,
right? You have to fight for justice. And I could no longer stand by and say, it's okay that what happened with George Floyd is going to happen again. I can't just sit here and say, it's okay, we've watched it happen. Every 2 weeks, something new is coming along. And we're sitting here as people of God, holding our voice back because we're afraid of what people might think of us. And I mean, Polynesians are, I shouldn't say this, but it's true. We have our own form of bias, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
There's a reason where Polynesian kids wear a hat when they go swimming, or hiding from the sun everywhere they go because they don't want to be dark. Right? Why? Because your parents are telling you, there's a measure of beauty here, right? If you're lighter skinned, you're more beautiful. If you're darker skinned, you're not as beautiful. And so we have our own biases that we're dealing with, and we have to call those out. And as soon as this happened, Tongan kids started calling this out in their parents, and that wasn't a fun experience, right? So the reality is, we may lose some people on this journey, but God is calling us. He's going to hold us accountable someday.
That's right.
For the things that we did not do. And, I shared this story a little bit ago, and then I'll turn the time over. I was in Friedensau, Germany, sitting at our university there, and they gave us a tour, and I was sitting there. I asked them, what did you do in World War II when the Holocaust was happening? Here, our church, in the midst of everything that was happening, what did we do? And the answer was nothing.
Wow.
And when I look back on history, I do not want to be standing on the I did nothing side.
Mercy, mercy, mercy.
I want to be standing on the I did something side. I said something. I stood up. I made waves. I built a platform. I connected with people who said it's not okay for injustice to happen. It's not okay for my Black brothers and sisters to have to deal with this. And as I look at racial profiling within the Polynesian community, it's happening. It happens. My siblings have encountered it over and over again. But you know what? Today, right now, we have to have this conversation. Why? Because this conversation matters for what's going to happen in the future.
Woo! Thank you, Pastor Kase, for bringing us there. Sako, so is there a dichotomy, which is probably very true? It's not just exclusive to us Polynesians, but is there a dichotomy for polys here who grows up in wherever we grow up and being closely related to the Black community, but having a desire to be part of the white community, right? Is there something like that? And name it if you would, and why you think it is, and how we can deal with that.
You know, I think this is a great question, and the answer is absolutely. You know, it's on the shoulders of our Black communities that we, as Pacific Islanders, come into this country and live. And it's funny because one of our sisters did a study on the reality of our parents when they came from the islands and how they connected with other minorities and stayed around the hubs. You know, I always tell people where I grew up. I grew up in Compton, hub city itself, but it's not until I really understood what that really meant within the demographic of study that she laid out, our sister Lydia. And it was interesting because all of our minorities who came on airplanes with the great migrations of the 1960s here into the United States, when they got here, they didn't move anywhere from like 10 to 15 miles away from the airports in which they were dropped off in, right? So the reality is when they came to the United States, they always huddled together, kept together in those communities. But here's the reality of our Black communities and how we stand on their shoulders, because it was the 1960s, the civil rights movement. It was on full go. And even with that, we come, you know, let's call it what it is. We're fobs. I mean, we were fobs in that time.
We're still kind of fobbish.
It's either fob or fop. Fresh off the plate. And as our parents came and settled, you know, the American dream was the mindset. And I think we have to go back even as islanders and rethink the American dream, because it is a system that was supported for people not of color. And I'll just lay it out there, right? And being a part of our communities, specifically our Black communities, we identify with them not only in places that we live, in the hubs that we live in, but the reality is on the other side is privilege. And they say you can identify with one side, but if you want to be successful, you're going to have to leave this side and go to generational wealth. You know, you try to be successful, you get education, you make your wealth, and you leave the projects and the neighborhoods in which we grew up in. And so when we talk about a dichotomy between the two, we struggle as Pacific Islanders, even right now, like attaching ourselves with the Black communities and then trying to be something of wealth, right? Of worth, if I can put it that way. In the eyes of a system that's not created for people of color to succeed. Now, I know I always get backlash, and I've lost family and friends because of this conversation, but part of being courageous for justice is understanding if you're not going to speak truth to power, then you're not speaking anything at all. And you know, we all in this time and season in our lives are dealing with people who over politicize what's right in God's eyes as opposed to what's right in Trump's eyes. Let's just lay it out there, right? And the reality is, I don't care what political party you stand for. The kingdom is what guides our politics. And for us, we have to make sure that we are struggling the good struggle so that we can be part of the solution. And, you know, I have the privilege of pastoring two Black churches here in the South. And you know, we see it all over where we drive, redlining, the effects of that and how it affects our communities. And you know, for us, we have to not only denounce the system that's already put in place, but the reality of trying to disattach ourselves from our Black communities, that's not what God wants. Like, if anything, we not only have to show compassion, but courage in standing in the fight and saying, listen, for far too long, our voices have been silent. And so the reason why we've come together as Pacific Islanders for Justice is our understanding, and we see it, that as we are silent and as we try to over-politicize our stance for the Black lives in Black Lives Matter, people will over-politicize it, saying, you know, God's not for you if you're standing up. But listen, everything about the lens of Scripture, and I see Pastor Donovan Childs on here as well, is their theology. Listen, all of our theology should be rooted in the liberation of God's people, because that's exactly what Scripture shows us. And from beginning to end, it's a God who comes, denounces his privilege, sees us in our mess, and then also brings us forward to deliver us when it's all said and done.
Woo!
Come on now. Come on.
I don't know why you'd lose friends or family. No, that was fantastic. That was beautifully said, my bro. So Soli, what is well, I'll tell you what, let's play a game real quick together and then I'll come to you. But I want to ask you, what then is the biblical mandate here that speaks most acutely to the injustices, and how does that resonate with our peoples, with our community, as well as our churches, and what can we as leaders do to press that on more of our peoples to help them really come out of their shell? So I want to ask you that. Before we do, let's play a game together. Shall we play a game? This game, by the way, if you're watching along, I am sitting together with some amazing leaders from the Polynesian peoples who are doing some great work around our community all over North America. And we are going to play a little game called Love One, Leave One. So if you are watching along, play with us. This is what all you have to do is choose one of the two options I give you. Whichever one you choose, that gets to stay in your life consistently. You get to enjoy it. The other thing disappears from existence forever and no one can use it. So if you're watching along and you're going to play this game, I want you to get on your keyboard and keyboard warriors, start tapping away, start answering these questions together. All right. We're going to start today with Orlando and with Kase. You two, you get a minute and a half. And you have to answer as many of these as possible. Whatever's left over, we'll give to the other two characters that come after you guys. All right? Are you guys ready to go?
Let's go.
Okay. All right. Say your answer loud and clear. And if you're watching along, type your comments in. And let's do it. Oh, no, that's not what we want to do. Let's not do that. That's Meshach. Hold on. Sorry about that, Soli. Okay, here we go. Ready? Or big toe. One of them's got to go.
Toe.
Football or rugby? Football.
Football.
Rugby. I'll be true. Rugby.
Okay, you're gonna keep rugby. Football's gonna go. Okay, Christmas or Thanksgiving?
Christmas.
All right. Last place with friends or first place alone?
Last place.
Popeyes.
Boys to Men or In Sync?
Boys to Men.
90s R&B or 80s hip hop?
Ooh.
80s.
All right. Can get away with any lie or can tell whenever someone else is lying?
Tell when someone else is lying.
First one.
All right. Beef or lamb?
Beef.
Mamoy.
Reggae or Motown?
Reggae.
All right. Good job, my friends. Good job. And good job on all of you guys dropping your comments. And I see him coming in. Jillian said In Sync. I think, Jillian, you're the only person who said In Sync. but you rock for that, my girl. Okay, we're going to put on our fellas now. Fellas, are you guys ready? Let me let me add Sako in here. Okay. All right. You two fellas ready to go?
Let's go.
All right.
So
I'm gonna give you a minute and a half, and you get the rest of the questions, which isn't very many left because those two did a phenomenal job. So I'm gonna give you a couple of theirs, and let's go. Here we go, everybody. Get your fingers ready. Boom, go. Church's chicken. Church's or Popeyes?
Churches.
Oh, Popeyes.
All right, all right. Boys to Men or In Sync?
Where's the man?
All right. 90s R&B, 80s hip hop.
80s hip hop.
Yeah, 90s R&B.
Okay, beef or lamb?
Beef.
My boy to the fullest.
Movie night or outdoor hiking?
Movie night.
Movie night. Ain't no one trying to walk.
Taro or sweet potato?
Follow, man.
Follow, man.
Taro to the fullest.
Yep.
All right. Tuna or corned beef?
Oh,
Tuna.
yeah, that's a tough one, man. Yeah, tuna.
All right. New Testament or Old Testament?
Oh, mercy.
30 seconds, fellas.
New Testament.
New Testament.
All right. Sing or speak?
Oh,
Say it
sing.
Sing
Sing.
or speak?
Sing.
Sing, because I can speak in my singing.
That's nice. Okay. Listen to bad sermons for the rest of your life or be a mediocre preacher for the rest of your life?
Mediocre. Preacher.
Yeah, I'll go with mediocre.
All right. Nikes or Adidas?
Nike.
Nikes.
All right. Nice work. Nice work. Nice work, my friends. Good work. You all did good. And all of you out there, thanks for joining along. You all did really good as well. Judy was in here doing the work. Judy said she'd rather speak than do singing. Thanks for that, Judy. So Judy, by the way, Orlando, I don't know if you knew this, but you were Judy's Bible teacher back in Samoa, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I remember Judy.
That's
What's up, Judy?
my
Good
sister-in-law.
to see you.
Yeah, she said
That's
she
my
wants-
family too. What's up, Judy?
Anybody else want to weigh in on fam here?
Yeah, hey man, that's my Leone blood.
She just everyone's family now.
Yeah,
Just
bro.
everyone's family.
Come
Just,
on.
yeah.
You know, I don't know if you all know, but Judy can sing. So she leads praise at our church.
Awesome.
Under my pastor's Pastor Philimu, who's also part of the team. Shout out to him. But she does praise, and she likes to lead praise. And let me tell you, yeah, she'd much rather speak than sing, because that girl will preach for like an hour before she sings a song, man. So just a call out on my girl. Okay, Shaq, Soli, back to you. Tell us what's the biblical mandate here for us to speak out most acutely against injustices, and how can we do it so that it resonates with our people more, and how can we get our communities fired up as well as our churches?
Sure. I think one of the, and I think Kasia made reference to the text already, it was something that came up very early in our discussion when the PI for Justice connected, and that was Micah 6:8. You know, when you really look at that text, it's like, what does the Lord require of you? If you look at that word required, right? The same text is made in reference in Deuteronomy. The required in Deuteronomy is more like it's more of a question, but the required that's in Micah is a mandate, right? And so what I think what a lot of people do, and this could be all just in biblical terms as well. It's like people use the Bible as a recommendation for their life as opposed to a requirement. And so I'm seeing a lot of these recommendations going around when people are trying to use theology to speak for injustice.
Come on now.
Instead against the injustice. And I for the life of me, I'm like, okay, because what you're saying is these are things that are recommended. Whatever recommendations is something that suits my own biases. But the requirement that God asks of us, right, is to, do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with God. I think that is something that just speaks on all levels. Like if we're going to be honest and we're looking at that text and we're talking about kingdom living or kingdom principles and kingdom values, the justice is for those that are being oppressed.
Right.
And let's be honest, when he's telling us to love mercy at the same time, we've got to look at the oppressor and say, well, how do we exercise that mercy towards them? And so the biggest question or the challenge we have is like, okay, God, then how is it that we do justly for those being oppressed, love mercy to those that are being the oppressors. And then he gives us this profound ending to the text. He says, by just walking with me.
Amen.
Wow.
Right. And so like what I would share is that when we walk with God humbly, we're able to walk with anybody. And so like a good analogy that I would share is like when the George Floyd thing popped off and his murder was just plastered all over social media and on television. And me and my son, my second oldest Isaac, we decided to do a march out in downtown San Diego. We signed up for this Purpose Prayer protest march that was headed to Petco Park. And when we got to downtown, there was hundreds and hundreds of people, if not thousands of people that were there. And so we started marching, and about maybe half a mile into the march, we started to hear some chants that were like, F the police. And, and I'm thinking to myself, I looked at my son, I said, I don't know if we're in the right march, and we came to realize there were two separate marches. One was headed to Balboa Park. The other was headed to Petco Park. And I was like, I think we're in the wrong march. And, it was then that the Lord just really spoke to my heart. He says, no, absolutely not. You're actually in the right march. Because how easy it is for us as people, as believers, to be in our bubble and walk together, because we all have the same ideology. We all have the same theology. We all share the same practices. Like, to do something like that, we can do that with ease. But what God calls us to is to walk with those that don't think like us.
Wow.
To walk with those that don't look like us. To walk with those that might have a different sexual orientation as us. To walk with those that might be, a different theological understanding or basis. And so that's where it came into. It's like, when we walk with God, it allows us to walk with anybody else. And so we challenge our community, we challenge our people, to really live what is recommended, right? No, what is required. My bad. What is required of us, right? What is required of us. And something that was interesting, that when we got into, when Pastor Orlando invited all of us to this conversation, I looked at the screen of everybody that was on there. I believe there was only 2 of our pastors that were in there that was actually in the Polynesian work.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. I think it was Pastor Fred and Pastor Yulu. I might be missing one more person, but every other pastor, educator, leader that was on that PI for Justice at the very beginning, everybody worked in a multi-ethnic or a non-Polynesian space, right? And so I was just thinking, how amazing is that God would allow us to be the bridge between our Polynesian community to advocate. And Toakase said at our march that we are standing on the shoulders of the African Americans, the blacks that have gone before us. She said, like, whenever you drink from a water fountain, remember, you only can drink from that water.
Come on.
Whenever you are riding on a bus or you see a bus, remember,
Come on now.
the only reason we as Polynesians are able to ride on the bus is simply because our black communities, our black brothers and sisters have gone before us and paved that way. And so what is amazing about the Polynesian community that I believe is that community is in our DNA. Like, we do that without effort. You come to mama's house, they're going to clear out their bedroom, allow the guest people to sleep in the master bedroom while they go sleep in the living room. That's just something we grew up with. And what better like gift that God had given this community to use to be a blessing, not just to our community, but to the greater community. And so I just think that, like, when we're talking about recommendations or requirement, like, this is something that suits so well within our DNA, within our community. And so
that's so good. That's so good, man. And awesome. It's very true, isn't it? Man, praise God. Yeah. Thanks for that, Meshach. It was very, very articulate, very well put. Annie asked, or she put on there, so what are the implications for people who act justly, love mercy, but not humbly with God? And I think you did a great work at actually answering that without even seeing that question. The importance of walking humbly by God and not running before Him. Making sure that we're, following in task, man. That's good work, man. Thank you so much for that. Hey everyone! So, in case you're not aware of this, there's an article that came out, a study that happened, and I'm just going to read you a snippet because there's a strong likelihood that there are Polynesians watching right now because you are here. So, because there are Polys out there listening, I want to make sure that people, at least the Polynesians in the LA County, know this. Okay, please, you got to know this to be true. That the death rates for Polynesians due to COVID in LA County is for Polynesians 12 times higher than it is for whites, 9 times higher than other Asians, 7 times higher than Latinos, and 5 times higher than African Americans. That's about 840 cases for every 100,000 people. So that being said, if you don't believe that COVID is real, do yourself and everyone else a favor and just chill at home. Just look, man, I know you need to get to that wedding or that funeral. I know there's a birthday and you got to get all your koloa. I know this to be true, but look. And it's always our old people, man. They be like, no, we be fine. Look, man, I've been working on concrete. I'll handle this COVID. Let me get to this thing. No, stay home. Stay home, please. So I want to ask, what keeps us from being able to flatten this curve in our community? What do you all suppose is happening in our community that we're not paying attention to COVID the way we should? Maybe I'll ask Kasi. Kasi, how about you start us into this convo? And I know we're running really close to our time now, but we've only got a couple more questions. So hang with us, guys, and ask some more, drop some comments in there.
I would say the problem is who we are. The problem is that we are community driven.
Yeah,
that's right.
So instead of like COVID is real, which I keep trying, COVID is, people are dying of COVID.
Yeah.
It's, if I don't go, I'm going to disappoint that's to not show up at a funeral is like the worst thing you could ever do. So for them, it's not even there's not even a question. Like, they died, I'm going. Oh, well, then COVID. Oh, I don't care.
Right.
But I'm going to die too. But I'm going to die. I'd rather die and go and do my duty as a sister, as a brother, as an aunt, as an uncle, than to stay, and then and the weddings, right? So I'm guilty, right? Guilty as charged. We had a family wedding last week, and they're calling, and I'm like, my husband is compromised. His immune system is compromised. But no, we need you to come, And for the pastor, how do you say no? I try to keep my father-in-law home, not happening. Right?
That man's a warrior, man.
Face COVID. Then not do the duty that they feel they have to do as a Polynesian community. I think that's the cultural component. The real component is this: Polynesians have health issues. We are not a healthy people.
Yeah.
Diabetes is rampant. Gout is rampant. High blood pressure is rampant. And so
that Mamoy, man. Mamoy.
Right? That otai.
Ooh, man, praise the Lord for otai.
So the health issue is why. And nobody takes that seriously because they're like, oh yeah, I got diabetes. My blood sugar is 500s, but give me that otai right now. Don't take that away from me. And you're like, okay, I'm gonna
just pray over it.
Pray it away.
Oh, mercy.
That's where our problems start, I think.
That's true. That's true. Orlando, how can we do a better job at helping our communities be safer? What do you suppose maybe would be a solution to help us move through this, or articulate it better, or encourage each other in a better way? And then you can speak to health, period, because Kasi, you're right, man. We be falling apart like champions, and then we just, no, I'm fine. No, I didn't need that leg. I'm cool. Get me the otai, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, Lando, what do you think, man?
And Gus is absolutely right when it comes to, the health concerns. That's what COVID, the COVID-19, what it latches onto is the pre-existing conditions. And so even trying to call my parents back home and trying to keep my dad safe so he's not well, and, just trying to limit people in my family they couldn't understand not going out and hanging out with their friends or bringing friends home. So from there, we had to say, look, if you want, and it is a guilt trip, really. If you want to kill our dad, then go ahead and do that, because that's the only thing that's kind of going to sink in. Because now they're thinking, what do you mean? I said, well, every time you go in and out of the home, you're bringing something. You could bring something to our father who would easily fall apart with this COVID if he gets it. Mercy. And so just being able to look at the health regulations, for us here in Canada, it's, 6 feet apart, where it's mandatory masks as you're, talking to each other, making sure that you wash your hands. So those are just some simple things that everyone just needs to adhere to. It's a whole new different way of welcoming or greeting each other. We always give that hug, it's that affection as a community. But now we just got to give daps. And, we just have to retrain our minds that it's not about you. It's the people that are in our homes that we have to protect. It's our mothers and our fathers. It's those that are sick. So don't be offended if I don't come and hug you. I'll dap you. I'll still love you. But I'm thinking about my own family who could, really perish if they got this. So I think there's a lot of, health regulations that are out there. Just follow it. Just, even if you're in, funerals and those sorts of things, just keep that distance as you're talking to one another. Man, you don't have to be so close, to each other. You know what I'm saying? Just kind of keep that distance from each other. And
that
I
is
think
so counterintuitive for us, isn't it?
Where, if you wear a mask, if you're not wearing a mask, it's like 95%, those germs are going to fly. If both of you wear a mask, then it comes all the way down. The percentage of you getting something is going to drastically decrease. So let's be smart. Let's think about our kids. Let's think about our matuas, our parents, and let's keep them safe. Even if we think we're destructive, let's keep them safe and keep them in mind.
Amen.
Right.
Sako, are you doing anything in your family particularly to deal with this COVID times? Is there something that you guys have kind of implemented to help your family?
So every Saturday night since we've been on shutdown, or since COVID existed within our communities, I have a family gathering on Zoom, and it never fails. There's always like 10 or 11 of us, our siblings and our parents. And anxiety kind of runs high in our family too. And so my dad, he's Mr. Social Distancing himself.
Is that right?
So
That's good. That's good.
He'll get on and ask how everyone's doing, and then scold everyone. I mean, we're Pacific Islanders. Listen,
yeah, that's what we do.
Our parents, it don't matter if we're 50 with grandkids, man. Our parents will always scold us. And so he scolds us because a lot of us are still going out and about with work and whatnot. So we always try to educate ourselves, look at the numbers. My dad likes to bring up numbers in our family Zoom meetings and say, hey, the numbers are going all the way up. Stop going to places. And then it's funny because he sent 3 of my nieces to me to quarantine within these last 2 weeks. So I don't know, sometimes it's he's one way, but the other, and again, it's counterintuitive to our culture because we're always community-based people that love on each other. And so it's kind of hard to kind of distance ourselves from each other. But if we really love each other, the reality is we got to make sure that we don't follow this whole it's a political thing. Again, what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong. Like, I don't care what political party you're part of.
Biblical mandate is biblical
lives
mandate.
Matter.
Yeah,
it's a biblical mandate.
Yeah. If you're catching up with us, we're just rounding out here our time together. I am with Pacific Islander Heretics for Justice. I want to thank each one of them. I didn't realize how many heretics we had among us Polynesians. So, I'm really thankful for their leadership and their wisdom, their counsel, their advice, and their courage to speak up and speak right and to help move forward all of our peoples together. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm just going to end out with 2 quick questions. Number one, I'm going to bring this back to Orlando. What's the strategic next step for PI4J, PI for Justice? Do you guys are you planning for something next?
Sure. So, one of the things, in discussion among ourselves and with the African American community, is to find, causes, that pertain not only to Pacific Islanders, but everyone. And just like it was shared earlier on, when blacks won, everyone won. When Pacific Islanders win, everyone wins. And so it is something for us. And I know Kase, is looking after that part of our work in terms of policies. We're looking into, things such as abuse. And we're not just staying with racial injustice, but what does justice look like for people who are being abused?
Right.
And we're looking at gender as well, because, between the disparities between male and female in the workplace, in the home, what does that look like as well? But also, when we talk about the illiterate rate for Pacific Islanders, reading and writing, what is that? How can we help in our voice to help that as well? So, we're still trying to crystallize exactly where we are going. We're looking at the different policies. We are talking to other nonprofit organizations which help the Pacific Island community just to get a better grasp about how our voice can help. So we're in that stage of gathering data and figuring out, which direction we want to lend our voice to.
Phenomenal. Hey, if you want to be a part of the movement, if you want to join in and be heard, or if you want to donate, praise the Lord, donate, please jump on, find our hashtag. There's a Facebook group going on, and of course, PI for Justice is the hashtag to keep this thing pushing forward. I want to thank all of our guests today. You guys have been fantastic. Really appreciated all of you guys being here and speaking truth to life here. Just as we end out, as I do every one of these, I want to invite each of you to speak inspiration and fire up those who are watching to live the best life possible. We started this Tuesday Tea Time basically to collaborate with different individuals who are doing good, creative, meaningful things in the world. And we hoped that after we were done with these sessions, someone out there would be like, yo, I can do this. I want to do this. I want to up my game. I want to be better at whatever it is. So I want to invite each of you to give me 60 seconds of some inspiration and speak to our peoples out there who are watching along. Would you do that for me? And you can do it via the Justice. You can do it via becoming a better human being, wherever you want to take this. Okay, I'm gonna start with the guy who came in last. Who crawled into our session. And Sako, how about you start, and we'll work our way to Meshach, Orlando, Kase, and then we'll close out our session here today.
Hey, absolutely. I just want to leave in your spirit, there's only one you. God created you. And because God created you, he's gifted you, he's clothed you, and you just got to walk in your purpose. The reality is you can't allow the enemy to tell you who you are, because you were purchased by the blood of Jesus. And because you were purchased by the blood of Jesus, you should go forward in the confidence that Jesus has you covered, that Jesus is leading you, and Jesus is going to deliver you when it's all said and done.
Woo!
Come on now.
Got him. Meshach.
Yeah, so real quick, just really big on self-care. So what I would say to everybody that's out there is like, don't let what you do for Christ get in the way of you being with Christ. Right? There's a lot of us that are out there are doing stuff in and of ourselves, and we fall into what we call burnout. One of the greatest advice that I received was on a plane when it says, make sure you put on your own oxygen mask before you're able to help the person next to you. And so if you yourself as an individual isn't healthy, and when I say that, I want to be emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, we really should think on what type of advice are we giving other people. And so make sure that what you do for Christ, because what that does, and for those who are just watching that maybe might not be faith-based, just make sure what you do internally, right, becomes a reflection of what you do externally.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, Meshach.
Awesome.
Come on.
Pastor Pule.
So the text comes to mind. Greater is he that is in me than he is who is in the world. And I think that is a reminder to us that, God has given us the opportunities to stand up and speak justice, in all situations. It's going to take some courage. It's going to take some strength from us. But God has given us that opportunity. And just for all our Pacific Islanders who are out there, I just want you to remember we were two things. We were navigators, and we were warriors. And so I want you to understand that our ancestors had come from a place where they navigated the large seas and the oceans in order to get to the tiny islands in which our parents or grandparents were born. They did that by learning the stars. And I think that for us, just remember that God is navigating our journey right now. He's navigating our path, and we were made to do great things. So whatever that looks like for you, if you're not a Pacific Islander, it still applies to you. So let's get it. Let's do what God has called us to, and it's greater than what we are doing currently right now. And God is always going to be with us.
Woo!
Amen.
Right. Bishop Toakase Vunileva.
You know, I feel like somebody out there is watching and needs to hear this word. One of my favorite authors, Francis Chan, says, but God doesn't call us to be comfortable. He calls us to trust him so completely that we are unafraid to put ourselves in situations where we will be in trouble if he doesn't come through. I think somebody out there needs to hear that God has an amazing thing for you. It might be in your career, it might be culturally, it might be in your family, but don't be afraid to take that risk, to take a step out, to take a step up, and do what God has gifted you to do. And you may not even believe that there's a God out there, but guess what? He's gifted you to do what you're good at. He's gifted you to be the person that that he wants you to be. And that person is to transform and change lives in the community that you live in. You don't have to go do something big and grand somewhere else. Guess what? Do something small that can transform the community that you're in, your neighbor, your friend, your brother, your sister. But be unafraid, because God is bigger. He is bigger than anything we could ask or imagine. And he is ready, and he is looking, and he is waiting to see you step into that space and bring him glory. And so that's what I want. I want to challenge you, young Pacific Island woman, child, man. God has something in store for you. And if we don't step out of that, if we don't step out into it, we're never going to know the dream that God has in store for us. So be unafraid. Because God is able, and he's willing, and he wants to. He desperately wants to see you achieve your dream. And I'm here. I'm here to back you up and pray you through that. And each of us here in our community, we're willing to do that. We're a hashtag away. We're a message away to pray for you, pray over you, and see God do something great in you.
Anybody ready to do a praise dance?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Praise the Lord. Thank you so much. Really good words. As we close out today, a couple words from me. Hey, listen, put that cup of hotai down. It's time. Just one less kumala in your life. We want y'all to live healthy lives and get out and walk some. It's good for all of us. God bless you. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of this conversation. Again, to our Polynesian team, Pacific Islanders for Justice, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing and rocking and talking community and life. For all of you who've been watching along, thanks again for joining us. We'll catch up next Tuesday when we hang out with Marcus Cole. God bless you, everybody. We'll see you then.